Hi everyone, my name's Kolya Rice. I'm the instructor for Art History 203, which is a writing credit and also gives you VLPA credits as well this quarter. And it's being offered online, I'm sure as you know. Hopefully at this point you will have all received the introductory email that I sent out to everyone a little bit before the course got started to just give you some time to think about what this course is, how it's set up as an online learning experience, what the expectations are. Linked to that introductory email you should have received as well a draft of the syllabus so that you've had time to kind of look through this. And if you haven't, it would probably be a good idea if you pause this lecture right now, find that introductory email, look through the syllabus so that you have a little bit of a head start on what I'm going to be doing today, which is frankly like what you would do on the first day of a face-to-face class, where you show up and the instructor hands out the syllabus and talks to you about what the course is all about and what the requirements for you are and what the pacing will be, and just kind of gives you a lay of the land, so to speak. That's what we're doing here. We're just doing it in a pre-recorded lecture. So, while we're here, before I even get going, just some kind of basics about ways to be successful in this course. First, if you've ever have any questions at all, there are a couple of places to ask those questions. The most immediate feedback that you can get is send me an email or send one of your teaching assistants an email. You will have access to all of us, and we are basically available every day of the week within kind of, let's say, really standard parameters. In other words, if you email me on Monday morning, you are bound to get a response from me or one of the TAs that same day as quickly as we can get it to you. I know how frustrating it is to have a question that in a face-to-face class you could get answered really quickly just by asking it in class, and have to sit around and wait for a day or two to get your response. So we take this really seriously, and we want to do our best to, get back to you as quickly as we can. So first way to get in contact with us is through an email. You can email me, you can email your TA, you can email, usually there are two TAs for this course. Anyone will work there. The other place that you can get in contact with us is through the FAQ forum. So if you've got a question that is the type of question that the answer might be beneficial to many members of the class, it's worthwhile to post that in that FAQ forum, which is in the first module. And when you open up Canvas, you will see this hopefully. And here, if you ask your question, and especially if it's like halfway through the quarter and we're waiting in papers, if you don't get an immediate response, like within 24 hours, absolutely alert us to this in an email, tell us you've got a big question, and we'll get to it again as quickly as we can. My office hours and the TA's office hours this quarter are all through Zoom. In the future, when this course is, when campus is open, this is being recorded, as you know, right now in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Campus is not open, so we're not there. But in future quarters, if I use this introductory video again, you would be able to get in contact with me on campus as well. But this quarter, it's all through Zoom appointment. Just about every weekday, I'm available at least a couple of hours for a Zoom, email or Zoom contact, and the TAs will be as well. They may also determine to give you kind of set hours in which you've kind of got drop-in hours that you can anticipate, but I always think that it's a little bit better use of my time to just say, I am available every day, and you send me a request for a Zoom meeting, and we'll schedule it that way, rather than me setting aside 1 hour's worth of time per week, which is all that is required, and you trying to fit that into your schedule. It just doesn't work very well. And if I'm just sitting around waiting for people on Zoom when no one really needs me that week, it's not a very productive use of my time either. So anytime you need to talk, and you think it would be better to do so through a Zoom meeting, we're available to you. Otherwise, email seems to work really well for most students in just about every case. During the first week, and maybe if this is something that students in this particular course are interested in, we can do this, as often as is useful. We would give you a big kind of wide open forum in a Zoom meeting. In other words, send out an invitation to everyone who's in the course and say, hey, we've got an hour's worth of time here, which will usually be set on a Thursday, which is when your section meetings would have taken place. And you can just drop in and ask a question or chat with us. We can get to know each other a little bit better. You can maybe get to know, at least through the tiles on Zoom, who else is in the course with you and so forth. And just, again, look for this in your announcements. So let's talk about what this course is and what some of the requirements are. Art History 203 is the third part of a series of surveys of Western art. A survey course is a course that tries to deal with many years of time, in this case about 400 years in the course of a quarter. Most courses in art history at the 200 level are some kind of survey. This one takes place between the years of about 1500 and about 1900. As a survey course, its main goal is to introduce you to kind of the greatest hits of Western art. So we look at big names, people like Michelangelo Buonarroti or Leonardo da Vinci. We look at Rembrandt van Rijn. We look at, all the way forward into contemporary masters like Delacroix and even Manet. All of the big names, all of the kind of highlights. We tend not to look at some of the, let's say, less well-known, but no less important, I think, artists, because we just don't have time to do that. My approach to teaching art history is to focus on fewer artists and works of art and go into more depth on those artists and works of art so that you build knowledge about the discipline of art history, so that you build knowledge about our interpretive techniques that are used in art history, so that you build knowledge at a deeper level that can then be used kind of like a toolbox and applied to other works of art that you might come in contact with either in other courses or in a museum or, in a book, and be able to take the more in-depth knowledge that you've gained in this course and apply it beyond this course. I also like to say that while the context for this course is about the history of art, what we're doing here is analyzing, really looking at depth, at visual representations. And you live these days in a visually saturated world. Tons of information that comes to you through visual forms. And the types of analyses that are used in art history to determine how those visual products are communicating to you or exhorting you to do this or that or move you this way or that, impact you psychologically, even physically, is something that you can learn through the discipline of art history. It is one of the reasons that I got interested in art history. It embraces a number of different disparate disciplines: art, aesthetics, philosophy, politics, history. I mean, there are so many different areas that are a component or components of what goes into producing works of art and the ways that we come to understand the meanings of work of art that are involved in art history, that I think it has a little bit of something for everyone. So again, what do we do in this class? We're basically looking at the highlights of artists and artworks from about 1500 to about 1900. We are going to be, and it's Western, so it's primarily European and a little bit of art from the United States or colonial America, but it doesn't go beyond that. And this is something that some students think, well, why are we so focused on Western art? And the answer is, we're not really. We are in this course, but if you're interested in knowing more about, let's say, arts from Africa or arts of the Pacific Northwest, arts from China, arts of Japan, there are courses on all of those as well. This is devoted to one little section of the production of art in the world. It's not the greatest art ever, but it is part of that Western canon of works of art. So, with that being said, what is art history? We'll get to that in the next lecture in more detail, but basically I'd like you to think of art history as being a discipline that is interested in the question of why a particular art was produced, when it was produced, what connections that painting or sculpture in our case has to the historical context in which it was produced. In other words, how does the work of art, let's say something that you'll all be familiar with, Michelangelo's famous David, which is a nude sculpture, how come that work of art was produced when it was? What was on Michelangelo's mind? What was going on in the world that surrounded him? Why was it okay for an artist of this time who was deeply religious to represent a nude form? Why? Why were those works produced when they were produced? The other question is, how do we analyze those works of art? How do we see some of the things that, let's say, were important during the time period in which they were produced in the visual form of the work of art? How do we get to that? And this course is about those types of questions. The structure of the course is, I try to keep this really, really consistent and very kind of low tech. I don't want you to get confused about what's coming up or what the expectations are or where you find something. So I just repeat the same kind of sequence over and over again with only a couple of exceptions. And this course is asynchronous. What that means is, in an online course, that you never have to be online at exactly the same time as others of your peers in order to be successful in this course. Every week, I open one or two modules. Many of the weeks will have two modules in this course. And a module is just an organizational grouping that is used on Canvas, which is, Canvas LMS is the teaching platform that we're using here, that is comprised of a video lecture, readings that are accessed through either your text or through PDF files that will be on Canvas that you'll just click on and they'll open up, or you can download those, reading guides, lecture guides, and then an assignment or two, a discussion forum, which I'll return to in a moment, and oftentimes a writing assignment. After all, this is a W course. The modules open at the very latest on the Monday of the week that they are about. Every time that it's possible for me to do so, I will open those modules early as the Friday of the week before, to give you a little bit more time to access the modules, to see what's going up on, to get started on them if you want. Right? Anytime that I can do that, I will do that. After a module is open, it will stay open for the remainder of the quarter, so that when we get to assignments such as quizzes, you can return to a module, refresh your memory through reviewing a lecture or looking back at a reading, and so forth. So, again, I'm going to get to this kind of in more detail as we go along in this lecture here today, but everything is set up sequentially. So every week you'll have one or two modules. Those modules should be worked through in order. In other words, go to the readings and do the readings, go to the lecture, view the lecture, then do the discussion forum, then move on to, any kind of writing assignment. I mean, that would be, anyway, the way that I would go at it. So then on to a few other things that we would cover in the first day of a course. What's your required reading? Number one, you have a textbook. It's Marilyn Stokestad's Art History, the 6th edition, volume number 2 from 2018. At least this quarter it is, and you can purchase that text. Electronically is the easiest, or you can order it on Amazon. It's a little bit cheaper to order it electronically. And you've got the link here, and you've got it in the introductory email that I sent out. The other readings, which are special topics readings, in other words, these are readings that are on a very kind of more limited area or a particular work of art, and they go into much more depth, are PDF files that can be found on Canvas in the individual modules. And again, I will show you this in a few moments here. This is a W credit course. There are university requirements for W courses that I can't get around as much as sometimes I would like to. And those requirements are, you have to have a certain amount of writing. That writing, and it's formal writing, has to be at least 10 pages overall. We're right on that edge. And that writing has to be revised. So, as I say here, as a W course, you may expect substantial writing assignments, writing tutorials to accompany those, and lots of feedback on your writing over the course of the quarter. Don't let this overwhelm you. Try not to get behind on these things, because, it gets everything behind over the course of the quarter. And don't get overwhelmed if you have a TA or myself or a tutor give you lots of feedback. That doesn't mean that you're a bad writer. What that means is these are ways to improve your writing. After all, that's what this course is about. In order to get better at writing, you have to respond to feedback that you receive from multiple different sources over the course of this quarter. In this course, you will get feedback from oftentimes me, often always from one of the TAs who are in charge of, most of the kind of assessment feedback and some of the evaluation, meaning grading of your writing assignments. And then you will also oftentimes get feedback from tutors or other types of TAs that don't have the same level of responsibility as the official TAs for this course. These tutors are basically experts in art history, experts in writing, who are your peers, who are oftentimes, although not always, senior art history majors who have gone through courses like this before, who I have spoken to for, oftentimes over the course of a year, many tutorials with them, so that they know exactly the type of feedback that I'm looking to provide to you. So they're very well trained, and they are someone who is meant to help you. So if they give you feedback, think about it. Think about how you implement it, and of course implement it in your revised drafts. And we'll get to this much more specifically when we get to those writing assignments. I will provide short tutorials, or the TAs will. I will provide introductions to the assignment and explain these things again in detail. I will talk to you at length about where to access the feedback that you receive, both through rubric, through overall what are called submission comments, where you get a big kind of general comment, as well as in-text, oftentimes prolific comments on your writing. Even if you're an expert writer and you're maybe an English major who loves writing, you can always, of course, get some feedback on your writing. I do. Everyone who does writing, of course, knows that this is very important to getting better, thinking about your writing through how someone else sees your writing. So, with that being said, be aware that in 2 of the assignments, the 3-page summary essay and the 5-page directed research paper, which is the big paper that you'll be doing in this course, you must do both an initial draft and a revised draft. There's no exceptions to this. It's part of the rules of the university for W courses. So for instance, if you just turn in one draft of one of these, and even if it's the greatest draft I've ever read, I can't actually pass you for the course. Keep this in mind, right? You have to turn in both the initial draft and the revised draft. of both of these two assignments to even pass the course. Okay, other responsibilities. Number one, you will have kind of equally spaced over the course of the quarter 2 quizzes. Each one is worth about 10% of your grade, not about, it is actually 10% of your grade, making up 20% of the overall grade for the quarter. Each quiz will require you to define terms, to write short answers and a little bit longer essays on topics covered in the Panopto lectures and in the course readings. These are always open note quizzes. You may return to the lectures and readings when composing your answers. Each quiz will only cover the topics for that approximately 5-week period of the quarter. In other words, they are not comprehensive. You will have a full week to complete the quiz, and frankly, if you keep up on the lectures and you take notes like you would in an face-to-face class, these quizzes shouldn't take you very much time at all. They're not meant to be difficult. They're meant to just check in with you to see that you are absorbing the course materials, that you're getting it, and that frankly you're doing the work that is necessary to gain the information that we want you to gain in this course. Second, you have a 3-page, what is known as in art history as a compare and contrast essay, which is, and I'll go into this in a moment, looking at 2 works that are on similar subject matters, meaning the similar subject, or the same subject, and thinking about how the artist has represented those subjects differently through the what we call the formal elements of art, the basic building blocks of art. In this case, you'll be looking at paintings. So those basic building blocks of a painting are things like composition, line, shape, color, and so forth. Again, no reason to get into the ins and outs of this here. You'll have a long introductory video on this. You'll have a tutorial on how to formally analyze a work of art and look at the visual or formal elements of a work of art, key terminology, and so forth when you get to that. One of the reasons that I do this type of essay in an introductory course is that it really focuses students in on the question of how something like an artist's choice of what color to put in their work of art can have some kind of effect on the viewer, and that art is, of course, a visual language, and really considering how visual languages communicate to us through the basic building blocks of the art form is an important starting point in art history. We move on now in the syllabus. The next major assignment that you'll have is a 3-page summary essay, and that will also include a revision. So the summary essay is, we're going to take a major topic in art history, the classical tradition. You're going to be given a couple of different options to pick from on what work of art that you want to be working on, and you are going to summarize all the main information that you have gotten through the lectures and the readings on that work of art in about a 3-page paper. I'm pretty flexible when it comes to page lengths. It's definitely not something you can do under 3 pages. If you went up to 4 pages or a little over 4 pages, I would be fine. I certainly don't want you to go into the range of like 7 or 8 pages. Being an economical writer is very important. And of course, you could, on the works of art that I'm going to be giving you, if you spent a ton of time on it, you could probably write a 80-page paper on them, but that's not what I want from you. I want you to summarize and synthesize information that you've gathered in lectures and in readings in order to communicate what you know about these works of art from this course. You're not in any of these assignments I've talked about so far to go to outside sources. Everything that you need is in the coursework. The big assignment for this course is a 5-page directed research paper as well as a revision, which will unfold in steps. A directed research paper means I provide you with the topics, and you will be given some options here. I provide you with a baseline of research materials. We're in a tough time here, so can't do as much research in our current situation as you might in some other situations. So I provide you with 4, 5, 6 different sources, and then I require you to do some online research to find a couple of other sources to flesh out your research paper. In this research-based assignment, students will critically assess the scholarly arguments in the discipline of art history that I provide you, which will provide the basis of a clearly organized and argued interpretation of a work of art. This assignment has several steps. One is that you'll start with an annotated bibliography, and then you'll write a thesis and an outline, and then you'll progress to an initial draft, and then finally you'll progress to a final draft. It's graded on a 100-point scale. It's a big part of the your grade, 25%. That's everything involved in this assignment. Final requirements for you is that just about every week you will have a discussion forum. Discussion forums have individual prompts on Canvas. The topics of this course can really lend themselves to rich discussion, and sometimes this is difficult to achieve online, but honestly, I think you guys are fantastic at this. It's been one of the things that has been really heartwarming in teaching online is watching how well a discussion unfolds online versus, I think we've all been there where a professor asks a question in class and everyone kind of looks at the ground and looks everywhere but at the professor, and there's a silence for 15 seconds and then someone kind of, sometimes very energetically and other times half-heartedly tries to answer that question, and everyone sits around waiting for someone else to do the work. That doesn't happen in these discussion forums. I think because you're so good at composing kind of online, like it's part of your generation, that you're really good at this. And so what I want to say about the discussion forums is, and again, each one has its own prompt, has its own approach to things, that what I want you to do is to engage with the materials. More than anything else, I want to see that you have been informed by the course content. If I can't see that in your discussion posts, for instance, you ask a question that's clearly already been asked and answered in the lecture, that's not a good thing. But if you ask a question in your initial post, and I'll talk about this in a moment, that shows that you're informed by the materials of the course, that's excellent. And your posts will take, there'll be 2 required every week. It's not every week, I should say. Every time you have a discussion forum, you have 2 posts to do. The first post, your initial post, is usually a question. That question should be, at least 250 words, sometimes as much as 500 or more words, in which you say, hey, based upon the prompt, here's the question that I want to ask. You explain the question in detail. You may even explain why you want an answer to this question. You really go into depth about, what you're asking and why you're asking it. And again, it should be informed by the course content. You need to make your initial post on every week that you have a discussion forum by Wednesday at midnight. The reason for this is that gives you a little bit of time to do the weekly work, right? Let's say the module opens on a Monday at the latest or the Friday before. You've got a couple of days to go through the course materials, and then you've got some time to think about them, and then you do your initial post by Wednesday midnight. The second post will almost always be a response to another peer in your discussion group. And there you need to make your response post, which should be just as in-depth, if not more so, than your initial post, by Friday at midnight. If ever you find yourself in a difficult situation where you can't get that work done on time, I want you to contact me or the TAs and ask for an extension, right? Ask for it in advance. That's always the course of action. If you ask me or just completely blow it off and then 4 days later you make a post, you will suffer late deductions. You'll suffer deductions to your score. But if you ask me before because you're in a tough situation, you need a little bit of extra time, and you tell me when you plan on having your post in, I can work with you on that. These are all graded on a 10-point scale. They are one of the most interesting parts of the course, frankly. They are something that allows you to go into greater depth on the course topics, to really ask questions of your peers. And, every once in a while, me or the TAs will chime in and add our thoughts on something as well. Again, this will make more sense when you see these on Canvas. I put down the due dates to remember here, just so you can see how things are paced. At the very beginning of the quarter, you will have more lectures, or the lectures are a little bit longer than they are later on in the quarter. And there's no real way around this, I'm afraid. Let me talk about this a little bit. The lectures that you'll be viewing for this course on the course content, my lectures, are lectures that were taped last year when this course was taught face-to-face. And I captured all the lectures on Panopto to be available for just this situation. Now, they are the reason I went with those lectures rather than sitting in front of my computer as I'm doing now and retaping all of the lectures is, first and foremost, those lectures were professionally captioned. We had some money in the budget, and we had a number of students in the class who had accessibility issues that we were able to have professional captioning done on these Panopto lectures. And so, this is really important to a lot of people, to have really good captions. You can turn those on and see the verbatim, lecture dialogue there in front of you. Now, some of you will be saying, well, doesn't Panopto do that anyway? It does. You can have Panopto auto caption. These lectures are done through Panopto, by the way. You can have them auto caption your lectures, but especially in an art history course with so much specialized terminology and odd artist names, Panopto does a horrible job auto captioning, and no one has time. It takes about 6 hours per lecture, basically hour lecture, to go through and caption all these correctly. So that's the main reason that I chose to use those lectures. Now, because those lectures were taped in a face-to-face context, also, there's a little bit more energy to them than me sitting in front of my computer and just talking to my computer for, hour upon hour upon hour. You can see my engagement with some of the students. If you want to see that, you get a little bit more of that real face-to-face quality there. The drawback of the lectures, if there is one, is that although in a face-to-face class, I try to get through every lecture on the day that it is scheduled for. Oftentimes a lecture will spill across multiple days. And in order to make those, to bring those all together, I had to edit together multiple days of lectures in the videos that you'll be seeing. So this is the major drawback, right? You'll have a lecture that will be going on, and I'll say, okay, we'll pick this up next time, and then it'll be edited, and we'll pick it up right there. So there's just this little kind of clunk in the middle of the lecture that wouldn't be there if it was just me lecturing to my laptop as I'm doing here today. But I think they're much better for those reasons. The final reason that I decided to do that is it frees me up to spend a heck of a lot more of my time doing the kinds of things that I really enjoy doing, which is responding to you and your writing through more, let's say, because I'll have more time, more comments, more thoughtful comments, responding to you in the discussion forums, creating better and longer tutorials for you to get to the special topics and so forth. So because I already had access to these, because it made a lot of sense to use these, and it freed up a lot of my time, and they came with captions already, that's why I chose to go that route. And I think you'll be fine with those little clunks where a lecture goes long and then I say, hey, we'll come back to this next time, and then 2 seconds later, we're already back to that lecture. Late papers and discussion post policy. I'm, as I said, pretty flexible about this. If you contact me in advance and ask for an extension, obviously I can't grant everyone an extension all of the time. It'll throw everything into chaos. But if something comes up in your world and you really need help, contact me in advance. Otherwise, Papers will be marked down 1 point for every day that they are late and will not be accepted more than 5 calendar days following the due date. Discussion posts will be marked down 2 points for each day they are late and will not be accepted if more than 3 days late. And the reason I'm a little bit more strict on discussions is if you don't post on time, no one can respond to your post. And again, it throws your section of the discussion into a bit of a kind of chaotic situation here. Then you can kind of go through this on your own time, which is the scales and the grades associated with them. There is a grading scale on Canvas on the syllabus page that you can go to and look at and see the way that let's say a 95 translates into a 4.0 or a 82 translates into whatever that might be. And you can look through these learning outcomes that I have on your own time. I don't think it's useful to spend some time on them here. The course outline and schedule is generally outlined here in under the title Course Outline and Schedule, and the specific prompts for each of the assignments listed below will be found on Canvas. Again, these modules will open no later than the Monday on the week that they're assigned for, usually on the Friday before, if possible. When you go into them, work your way through them in order, sequentially. So you can see here on week number 1, here we are. If you follow my cursor here, week 1, module 1. This is our first module. It's an introduction to art history into the course. You've got 2 Panopto video lectures that are noted. This is the first one. The second one is an introduction to art history. That introduction to art history, by the way, was initially taped for Art History 220, which is a history of American art, but it's applicable to any art history course. I just taped it as a kind of, I say tape, that shows how old I am, doesn't it? Recorded. No one uses tapes anymore, right? So recorded that lecture as a way to introduce you to what art history does, some of the methodological approaches, meaning our interpretive approaches to art history, some of the key terminology that is used, and so forth. So don't get thrown off if it refers to, I think, once or twice Art History 220. It doesn't matter at all. It's completely applicable to this course as well, which, by the way, reminds me of something I should have said when I was talking about those lectures that you'll be viewing for the content of this course. Because they were taped in a face-to-face course where I had midterms and finals, which thank God you guys don't have, I might from time to time refer to a midterm or a final in those lectures. Just ignore that. You don't have a midterm and a final in this course. You have much smaller, let's say, less substantive, I hate to say that, quizzes, and you've got a variety of writing assignments. So again, you can work your way through this on your own time to see how this is all laid out, what the writing assignments are, and so forth. One final thing is, and I'm going to go here to the second page of the schedule, which is just follow my cursor here. At the very top left-hand corner, you see under readings the text, and then below that ER, which means electronic reserve. These are the PDF files on special topics readings on Canvas. And it says H.W. Jansen's History of Art, and then it says number 58, number 59, 61, 66, and then it says all readings from Jansen are in one PDF or individually numbered. I want to draw your attention to this because what these readings are actually what are known as primary documents. They are writings by either the artist or of key historical figures during the time period in which the art for that week was produced. They were all compiled in a different art survey text that we're not using by H.W. Jansen that I have copied out, and I just put them in one giant PDF file rather than cutting and pasting a whole bunch of, and they're very short readings, by the way. I don't think there's one that's even a full page long. And they're all individually numbered, so I just put them in one big PDF file. So when you see Jansen, and you'll see it shows up here over and over again, you'll have to go and look for number 58 in that file, and they're all individually numbered. Shouldn't take much, but I wanted to clarify that here. So I think the final thing I want to say in this introductory lecture, and again, if you have any questions on this, either email me or come to the first week's Zoom meeting and ask your questions or post them in the fact forum, is to just kind of close this out and look at the the Canvas page itself. Now you should be able to see that Canvas page. My talking head is in one corner, and then the what's on my desktop screen is in the larger pane. When you open this up on week number 1, it will be changed from the syllabus page to the module page as your home page. And while you won't be able to see all of this is my view as an instructor, I wanted to show you how this is all set up here, so that you see that the entire course has already kind of been developed. There are things that are still needing to be done here, but it's all set up as one module after another. So in week number 1, you have 2 modules, right? Module number 1 with the frequently asked questions. If you have a question that you think the answer would benefit the rest of the class, post it here. Again, if you don't get a response within 24 hours, send me an email and I will hop to it. Sometimes, because I don't get notifications that you've posted a question there, if I'm in the middle of the quarter and grading a ton of papers, it might slip through, but don't let it. Please don't feel bad at all about saying, hey, Collier, man, I posted this yesterday. Could I get a response to that? Then you've got your assignments, introductions, post a bio. So I'm going to open this up. You will have seen this. This is what discussion forums look like. They have a prompt that says, here's what I'm asking you to do. And then you just post it by hitting reply and putting your post in here. Go back to the modules here. When you get to a content component of the class, like this or this, I'll just open up the Introduction to Art History. It looks like this, right? It will usually tell you something about what's going on here. This is a video that's a short introduction to art history, key terminology and methodology. It was originally recorded for the Survey of American Art, but is entirely applicable to any art history course, including this one. Then you see the lecture itself here. If you just click on this here, it'll open it up in your browser and start playing it in its standard format. If you, and again, follow my cursor here, see this little button down here that says, it's an arrow pointed at an angle, it says watch in Panopto. If you click on that, it opens up a different dialog page, and you can mess around with how it is formatted. So you might determine that it's not really useful to you to see me talking. It's much more beneficial to just hear me talking and look at a larger picture of the work of art that's on my desktop. And you can do that if you open it up here. Sometimes people have problems using Panopto because they're very large files, and let's say you're having a Wi-Fi problem that week. I will provide you, if you have a problem seeing these on Panopto, with a link to a YouTube page in which I will have MP4 videos of all of these lectures. Now, they'll just be compiled on YouTube in a playlist page, so you'll have to actually find those lectures. They'll all be titled the same way they are in Panopto, but you'll have to kind of go through and find them. But those files, being smaller, are easier to stream. I think you can even download them if you wanted to, if you're having problems with that. And in that case, you can also turn on the auto captioning on YouTube, which is slightly better than what Panopto does. Well, again, hopefully that gives you at least some sense of what this course is all about. As we go through, there will be lots of tutorials for the different assignments, different approaches used in art history, and of course the lectures themselves. And you'll always have access to myself and the TAs whenever you have a question that hasn't been covered yet that you need an answer to. Please, though, take the time every week to systematically go through the materials. Make sure at the beginning of every week, you can set your settings so that you get notifications and even have the announcement sent to you. But every week, at the beginning of the week, I will post an announcement, at least one, that says, hey, this week you've got 2 modules, here are the assignments that we'll be doing, and that's a way for me to check in with you and just help direct you towards things. Read that first, then go through the modules, and then if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to hit me up. Again, hopefully that was useful. I try to keep these intro lectures online fairly brief because I know there's a limited time that people can stand these days looking at their laptop. I get it, believe me. But if you have any questions, let me know. Finally, I guess, before I let you go, is this. The lectures themselves there are actually less of them than you would have if you were in a face-to-face class, right? So sometimes students say, wow, it seems like there's a lot of lecture materials. That's just your perception, I hate to say. Because we don't have an in-class midterm and we don't have an in-class final, and we're not dealing so much with days in which you might have a holiday, and you don't have to go to sections every week. Actually, the lecture time that you'll have to devote to viewing lectures is a little bit less than it would be in a face-to-face class, and a lot less because you don't have every week a section meeting. So I guess I say that because there is this feeling, I think, among students that, wow, it seems like these lectures are really long. Well, they were taped, again, for face-to-face. But again, if you are viewing a lecture and you say, man, I've only got 40 minutes and this lecture is an hour and a half long and I don't have time for that. I wish Kolya would have shortened these lectures into smaller bites. I always think to myself, it's completely appropriate for you to just pause that lecture where it is, right? Just only watch that much of the lecture if that's as much time as you have right there, and then pick it up when you've got time later on in the day or the next day or whatever. There's no reason for me to break them up for you. You can break them up. It will not take much for you to kind of remind yourself, if you're taking good notes, of where that lecture started. And because, you'll see this very quickly, because lectures are really devoted to particular time periods and particular artists, if you stop after viewing Rembrandt and before you go on to view another artist, you're not going to forget all the important information, be lost as the lecture goes ahead. So just keep that in mind. Again, sorry, I hope this is helpful to you, and I hope that you're going to enjoy this class. It's, for me, one of my favorite classes to teach. It's a lot more fun for me to teach, honestly, face-to-face, because of the energy and getting feedback from you by seeing the looks on your faces when you've got questions. But I think it can be a pretty great experience this way, and there are some benefits to going online that you don't get in a face-to-face. One of the big ones is more time devoted by me, because I don't have to focus on the lectures, and by your TAs on helping you to be successful in this class, and I think much better discussions. Okay, now move on to the next lecture, a kind of introduction to the discipline of art history. And I'll see you, so to speak, over the course of the quarter.